Welcome to Close Listening. I'm Zach Morgenstern, joined as always by silent co-host Ludwig von B. So I've previously talked about Neil Young's first two records, and now I'm going to talk about the third. Neil Young is an artist who writes intense lyrics, but at least with these early albums, it's hard to find much discussion on what the lyrics mean. So here's the album. It's called After the Goldrush, and it starts with a simple yet polished singer-songwriter tune called Tell Me Why. But I think where my observations really start to kick in is the next song, After the Goldrush. Neil Young struck me as kind of shy on his first two albums. On the first album, he sung a bit too quietly, and on the second album, he would take long breaks from his singing to do guitar solos. But here he's finally being a raw singer-songwriter, and particularly on the title song, After the Goldrush, he just kind of plunks at the piano. There's not a whole band sound. It's just him playing the chords to get the mood out and singing so you can really hear his intense lyrics. Now, as I said, Neil Young writes a lot. His lyrics are captivating poetry, but it's hard to tell what they're about and if they're about anything per se. And I think the best way to appreciate these songs is Neil Young is maybe not a commentator, but he's certainly an observer to do a kind of bearing witness. So after the Gold Rush, it starts intensely. It starts in the Middle Ages with references to knights and queens, and then it takes us all the way up in just 3 verses total to the space age and the abandonment of Earth. I guess the song, if it is a commentary, is about the fragility of humans and how in geological time, our time here is so short, but essentially it just gets there through a series of observations. The next song on the album, another Neil Young classic, Only Love Can Break Your Heart. A recurring theme in the first two Neil Young records was singing as someone who had struggled to find love. And compared to those kind of songs, this song comes from a place of romantic maturity. What's interesting and ironic here is it seems that what Neil has observed is that the better you get at things, the more mature you get, just the more ways you find for love to hurt you. So he's not the brooding loner of this first album. He's someone who has an understanding of what love is, and yet his heart keeps breaking. The next song takes Neil's observations right to the brink of commentary. It's called Southern Man. And again, he's very descriptive, very poetic, using all his senses. He says, I saw cotton and I saw black, tall white mansions and little shacks. Now, this song is a commentary song, but it's not commentary at its best or wisest. As Lynyrd Skynyrd, we're not wrong to point out in Sweet Home Alabama, it's dismissive and arrogant and not good political strategy to suggest that Southern culture is inseparable from George Wallace and segregationist culture. Simply noticing that there are bad populations with the bad ideas in the world doesn't make for a good political strategy, because if all you're doing is denouncing people, there's no way you're going to bring some of them into your political coalition. But again, Neil Young, he's not largely a political visionary. He's not providing solutions for the world. He's just observing, and you couldn't be alive in the 60s without noticing the brutality, the apartheid in the South of the United States. After the intensity of that track, he gives us a nice, light little song with a bouncy piano sound called Till the Morning Comes. It's amazing when Neil Young pulls off a fun sound, because his voice is just so naturally so depressing, so mournful. The second half of the record starts with a cover of Don Gibson's country song, Oh Lonesome Me, so building up on the lonely, brooding identity Neil Young had established in his first two records. And that is followed by the dramatic lyrics of Don't Let It Bring You Down. So this one, and it's not the first time I've said this about a Neil Young song, really feels like it's influenced by Bob Dylan's A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall. It's another song rife with observations, with adjectives and dark scenes. Red lights flashing through the window in the rain. Can you hear the sirens moan? White cane lying in a gutter in the lane if you're walking home alone. The next two songs are Birds and When You Dance, I Can Really Love You. This is an interesting pairing of a raw piano breakup song and a more committed love song recorded with the full band sound of Crazy Horse. So though thematically these songs are the opposite, love coming apart, love staying together, the two songs share a character with the rest of the record. They, no matter what Neil Young is thinking, sound overwhelmingly melancholy, and they're just full of little notes, little observations. So in the song about the simple beauty of dancing in love, Young just stays sensory. When you dance, do your senses tingle? then take a chance in a trance. And like a mountain that's growing, a river that rolls, let me come over. Then the final two songs of the record of I Believe in You and Cripple Creek Ferry. Cripple Creek was one of the less serious songs on the record, with Neil Young putting on a bit of a Southern accent when he's singing it, having fun doing it. Whereas I Believe in You is one of the more serious ones, since it asks some tough questions. Now that you made yourself love me, do you think I can change it in a day? How can I place you above me? Am I lying to you when I say that I believe in you? So the album art for this record, which you can't really see because of the library sticker, at first it looks kind of dull, like one of those albums that's just a photo of the singer-songwriter and not something more artistic conceptually. But we should look closer. So the lighting on Neil Young's face has been edited. Nowadays, this is something you can easily do on a phone photo app, but back then it had to be a more purposeful choice. So Neil Young in this photo stoically faces forward into the darkness, into this darkness that's eating away at his face. And then he has this puppet on his back, as if only this puppet can accompany him. That Neil Young, despite this 3-album-long search for love, can never be a true loving figure because he just has to keep bearing witness to the world, keep marching forward with his little notepad in his hand, churning out these observations into songs. So it can be hard to read too consistent a theme into any one record, because at the end of the day, they're just a collection of songs that a songwriter put out at a moment. But with Neil Young, there's such profundity to the songs and such profundity in his vocal delivery. It doesn't feel good enough to simply hear them as individual tunes. You want to listen for patterns. And while I'd love to hear more specific patterns in these songs, again, that one thing, that obsession with observation, with saying a lot, with now not necessarily taking a stand, with using a lot of adjectives in his writing, talking about the senses more than ideas. That seems to be a really important theme in this album, and it creates a lot of beauty. I'm Zach Morgenstern. This is Ludwig von B. See you next time.